Let's begin with an ordinary morning. You turn on the faucet. The sink reflects the kitchen light as usual. The knife on the counter gleams with a cool metallic shine. A few streets away, in a hospital operating room, a surgical team prepares sterile instruments for an upcoming procedure. All of these objects share something rarely noticed. They depend on stainless steel. Now change one variable. Overnight, every stainless steel alloy on Earth transforms into ordinary carbon steel. Nothing explodes. Nothing vanishes. The chromium, nickel, and molybdenum, the elements that keep the material stable against oxygen and water, are simply gone. Inside the operating room, surgical tools begin developing brown spots after just a few cycles of steam sterilization. Steam, at 121 degrees Celsius inside an autoclave, does not harm stainless steel. But for regular steel, it creates ideal conditions for oxygen and water to react with iron. Rust does more than discolor a surface. It forms a porous layer that traps bacteria and reduces the precision of cutting edges. In medicine, a deviation of a fraction of a millimeter can mean unintended tissue damage. Leave the hospital and return to the kitchen. Within days, the sink develops a faint metallic odor. When iron oxidizes, iron ions can partially dissolve into water, producing a distinctive metallic taste. If you have ever tasted water from old pipes, you have encountered this reaction. Rusted surfaces also retain moisture longer, accelerating corrosion. A self-amplifying cycle begins. In food processing plants, mixing tanks and pipelines are commonly made from stainless steel grades, such as 304 or 316, chosen specifically to resist mild acids from milk, fruit juice, or vinegar. If those materials become ordinary steel, lactic acid in dairy or acetic acid in vinegar begins attacking the metal directly. The reaction is not explosive. It is gradual erosion. After weeks, flakes of rust detach and contaminate products. Production lines shut down. The story quickly extends beyond kitchens and factories. In aviation, many jet engine components rely on chromium and nickel-containing alloys to resist oxidation at high temperatures. At roughly 800-1 Armusa, regular steel rapidly loses any protective scale and forms thick oxide layers that can flake away. In a turbine spinning at more than 10,000 revolutions per minute, a single fragment of oxide scale can cause catastrophic imbalance. At those speeds, even a small irregularity is like dropping a pebble into a high-powered blender. Coastal cities would face the next wave of damage. Salt in sea air accelerates corrosion through chloride ions. Stainless steel grade 316 contains molybdenum, specifically to resist pitting corrosion caused by chlorides. Carbon steel does not. Railings, emplacus, and water tanks begin developing tiny pits. Pitting corrosion does not immediately weaken a structure, but it creates stress concentration points. A strong storm later could turn those microscopic flaws into fracture points. Chemical plants would encounter severe disruptions. Pipelines carrying dilute sulfuric acid or alkaline solutions rely on a stable chromium oxide layer to prevent ongoing reaction. Without it, metal surfaces contact chemicals directly. Localized heat from chemical reactions can accelerate corrosion even further. Systems shut down to prevent leaks. The production of fertilizers, plastics, and pharmaceuticals slows or stops. Architecture is not immune. Many modern buildings use stainless steel for facades, handrails, and structural supports because of its long-term stability. Carbon steel requires protective coatings and frequent maintenance. If every stainless steel component turned into plain steel overnight, maintenance schedules would multiply dramatically. Costs would not rise linearly. Each rust spot becomes a repair point, and each repair demands labor, materials, and time. The factor preventing this scenario lies in alloy composition. Chromium forms a tightly bonded, stable oxide layer. Nickel stabilizes the austenitic structure, improving ductility and resistance to cracking. Molybdenum enhances resistance to pitting in chloride-rich environments. Together, these elements may account for 15–25% of the alloy's mass. Yet they completely transform its behavior. A small adjustment in composition produces a fundamentally different material, much like adding yeast to flour changes dough into bread. Modern society operates on the assumption that metal surfaces will not react too quickly with their environment. Stainless steel turns that assumption into reality across millions of applications. When you see light reflecting off a bridge railing, you are seeing a chromium oxide layer only a few nanometers thick at work. A nanometer is so small that it requires an electron microscope to observe. Yet it determines the lifespan of entire structures. The idea of no stainless steel may sound like a thought experiment, but it reveals how deeply we rely on this material, from hospitals and kitchens to factories and airports. The chemical stability of stainless steel keeps systems functioning smoothly. The next time you touch a cool, smooth stainless steel surface, consider that its stability is not accidental. It comes from a few carefully balanced percentage points of alloying elements. And if such small compositional differences can prevent the world from turning brown with rust, it raises a broader question. How many other materials around us quietly carry similar responsibility?